I'm sensing there's mostly frustration and disappointment in the Milwaukee Brewers for having to trade Freddy Peralta and what they got in return. We'll get to that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everybody, good to have you along on a cold winter's day in the great state of Wisconsin. Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Locked On Brewers, the number one Brewers podcast on the internet, and the Locked On Sports Network, the number one podcast network in the world. All right, coming up on the show today, the aftermath. I see many people disappointed in what the Brewers did in having to make this move. We knew it was coming, but still there's disappointment. We'll talk about that. Contreras, are we going to be going through this again next year with our catcher? We'll talk about that as well. Any more moves on the table for the Milwaukee Brewers? I think there might be one player that could still get moved yet. We'll get to all that coming up next. Locked On Brewers brought to you by TurboTax. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate. You're busy enough. Go to turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. Yeah, I feel like every year, whether the Brewers are trading Devin Williams or Josh Hader, well, that was done during the season, but the offseason moves, letting Adames go to the Giants as a free agent, trading Burns. The first shots people are going to take and fire are going to be at Mark Attanasio. He's the target in this. Oh, here's Attanasio being cheap, this and that. Matt Arnold even said, there's no way we are going to re-sign him. This is not what the Brewers do. You know what? The process has been pretty good for the Milwaukee Brewers, right? Weird that they win the division title, yet trade their best player each year, or one of their best players. But that process seems to work. They're stacking up minor leaguers, and who knows, not all those minor leaguers are going to hit that they get in trades, or like the DL Halls in the world, still to be determined. Ortiz, they got in a Corbin Burns deal. We're not sure about that one just yet. We're kind of going the other way, thinking that one was not pretty good, even though he's pretty good defensively. But there's a lot of disappointment because the shock value of the Brewers trading Peralta, an all-star pitcher who won 17 games, right? Even though we all knew that this day was going to come with the Brewers, that they were going to trade him, although there was a glimmer of hope. And Freddie was very popular among Brewers fans, obviously. Easy, a likable guy, okay? Always had a smile on his face, and he went out there and won games. Now, there are some people out there, and I even see some of these people on Twitter who were on Freddy Peralta all season long. Oh, Freddie does this, high pitch count. There he is out of the game in the fifth inning, and I get it. And then those are the people who are just coming down on Attanasio today. But some of you guys were disappointed in Freddie during the season and were frustrated. But you didn't like what the Brewers got in return, and I get it. Because when you trade an all-star, you always think you're going to get some established players. In this case, when I look further back on this move, I wish the Brewers would have got a power hitter back in return somehow. Yeah, would love to have Batty with the Mets, but apparently he was a no-go. I think the Brewers, I wish they would have got that's my regret in this, is that I wish there was a power bat they could have got from somebody. Because I feel like they need that. What's this team missing? Power. This team is missing power. They got enough guys who are 5'7", 175 pounds. And I feel like someone's got to ask Matt Arnold, is that your MO? Stock up on guys who have a master's degree in the strike zone, are going to work counts, be great defensively, not hit a lot of home runs, but get on base and work counts and do one of those things. The Brewers have a number of those guys, right? Turang, Frelick, Durbin, they have those kind of guys. And by getting both of these players in return, It's players you like to think that have got some upside to them. I would think that both have upside to them. Now, the pitcher, Sproat, he might take some work because if you look at his numbers here, and I'm looking at him, he's a guy who got some upside to him. It looks like made 4 starts with the Mets last year. And anytime the Brewers get a pitcher, as I mentioned in yesterday's podcast, there's going to be a feeling that the Brewers can get more out of him than what other teams have in the past. But with Williams, a guy who's 30th in the pipeline, on the MLB pipeline, at least as of right now, 3rd in the Mets organization. Mets got a pretty good minor league organization. Guy who's checks off a lot of boxes of what the Brewers like in a guy. And I feel like that's what Arnold's MO is. Get hard-nosed guys. A guy who's going to stick his face into the dirt. And the Brewers got a number of those guys. A number of those guys who Pat Murphy just absolutely loves. And if you're that kind of guy, you're going to somehow find your way into the lineup. Amazing. You think baseball's a game of big boppers, big strong guys who are going to hit you 30, 35 home runs? The Brewers take the opposite approach. I like these small guys who are going to go up there and not make big mistakes and have a high baseball IQ. This guy here, Jet Williams, seems to be that kind of guy. The only problem is the Brewers have enough guys like that already. When do you venture off to a different way? I think they needed a power bat in return. That's my only drawback. Again, I knew the Brewers weren't going to, in this deal, they weren't going to get 15 prospects. Although you look at what the Yankees, they made a trade the other day. And they got some pretty good they had to trade away like 3 or 4 prospects the other day for starting pitching. And it appears in this deal, the Brewers and Mets, the Brewers had to throw in Myers in on the deal. I wonder if they had to throw in, if they wanted McGill, and the Brewers said no. So they gave Myers. My feeling is maybe the Mets wanted McGill too as part of this. And the Brewers said, no, you can have Myers. I think the Brewers initially as they just read the leaves on this one, the Brewers initially just wanted those 2 players for Peralta. And the Mets said, no, you got to throw in Myers. Myers, on the other hand, I mean, a guy who's fallen from favor in the Brewers organization. Once promising pitcher, pitched well in relief for the Brewers last year. There was that game where the Brewers won 12 in a row and Myers came in and shut down 6 straight to finish off a victory over the Mets. There were games like that, but Myers wasn't the guy he was previously. And the Brewers obviously felt the same way. I think the Brewers felt like, let's trade him or throw him in right now. And the Brewers will say great things right about Myers as he's going. But obviously, the Brewers didn't have big plans for him. This trade was made last year. We would be all up in arms. Why is Myers going in part of this deal? But I feel like Tobias, could he get much better than he was a couple of years ago when he was pitcher of the year of the organization? Well, obviously the Brewers don't feel that way. If they did, he was basically a throw-in in this deal. A couple of years ago, he wouldn't have been a throw-in. Arnold tells the Journal Sentinel Online, among others, that they really thought that there was going to be a challenge to re-sign Freddie. That's Captain Obvious stuff right there. I'm not tagging Arnold on that. I'm just saying we all knew that, right? It was going to be a challenge. It was going to be a challenge, and there was a lot of interest in him, but he knew it, and the Brewers knew, and everybody knew that it was a challenge, and that's part of the thing. When you trade Peralta and you're looking to trade him to another team, other teams know, hey, the Brewers don't really want to keep him because they know they can't re-sign him. But in this case, I think the Brewers were okay with keeping him if they didn't get what they wanted out of him. Sure, they were actively trading him out there. And the Brewers might say otherwise, but of course they were actively trying to move him because that's what the Brewers do. They actively move pitchers going into the final year of their deal. And I get that. I totally get that. Yeah, we could have ran it back with Peralta for another year, right? And you would have had Peralta, Woodruff. I like to think we can count on. Now, if Woodruff's, if that shoulder is barking up on him again, and that rotation is a little bit of a hurt, right? We are kind of banking on that Woodruff is going to be healthy. Wasn't healthy at the end of the season, but all of a sudden, paying him $22 million, top of the rotation, he becomes your ace. And if he has to miss some time, go on the injured list, not ready to go, whatever, that could be just an awful mistake the Brewers made. Playing that little game. And maybe not thinking that he was going to take the $22 million. But now that they got him, he better become the ace of that team. Right? If not, who becomes the ace? I like to never count. I just don't like counting on guys coming off injury. But if you can't count on him, Mizralski becomes your ace. Mizrael and everybody else goes up a notch. So, this deal, yeah, my only problem with it, I don't have any problem with the two prospects they got in return, but I think they needed to get a power bat into the system. I do. I just feel like Jet Williams feels we got enough Jet Williams on this in this organization, don't we? And maybe he's going to play outfield. But still, we got guys like that. We have guys like on that team. Can you win division titles with guys like that? The Brewers have proven it. Can you win world championships with it? To win world championships, you got to have stars. How did the Brewers get beat in the playoffs last year? Shohei. And you can't have a Shohei on your team, but you'd love to have a guy who could hit you a couple of home runs in a postseason game. But I totally get it from Brewer fans. I'm going to read a couple of things you guys have said, in particular, messages I got. Very interesting what Brewers fan had to say about all this stuff. And you guys, man, to be talking baseball in wintertime, when I'll be honest with you, in years gone by, the Brewers in the wintertime were kind of a dead issue. Brewers could make a trade. I'm talking about, 5-10 years ago. Now there's more interest in the Brewers offseason than there ever was, especially now with Packer season gone. I'm not laughing at it, but with Packer season gone, we turn our attention to the Milwaukee Brewers, hopefully, and what they're doing here in the offseason. But we're going to get to a couple of messages that you guys sent me next here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. TurboTax, new sponsor here of Locked On Brewers. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. You don't have to be spending all weekend at the kitchen table, at the desk, in your office, away from your family, away from your wife, your girlfriend, by doing taxes. That's no fun. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to get a wrap on things, get your hands off and move on with your day. TurboTax full service. You can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress of guesswork. They'll handle everything. W-2s, self-employment forms, the work to get you every deduction. They will work and get you your deduction, upload your documents, go about your day, and TurboTax does the work. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. TurboTax, if they didn't file your taxes last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate. Get back your life. Visit TurboTax.com/loco to book your appointment today with TurboTax. And by the way, the Everydayer Club is up and running for Locked On Brewers. Ad-free podcasts on the audio platforms. This Discord, we're going to get going here. We're going to be talking Brewers baseball a couple of times during the week. Conversations during the week, you and I. All part of the Everydayer Club. We're getting going here. See the link below. There's other amenities as well. See the link below on YouTube or any of the audio platforms. It's all there for you. It'll explain everything. become a member of the Everydayer Club here on Locked On Brewers. And by the way, the podcast, you get it on Google, Spotify, Apple. We'll talk more about that a little bit later on here in the show. All right, two things I want to bring up here. Two messages I got in particular. Got a ton of messages. As always, hit me up on Twitter, Chuck Freimund, Freimund. DM me on there. Always love reading responses that you guys, ideas you guys have, because you guys got some great things to say. I'm going to leave the names out of here. Seems like good or fair deal for both sides, but should we as Brewer fans be disappointed not to have got an established major league player at all? In these kind of moves, you mostly get prospects, right? Because teams like the Mets, they want to keep their veteran players. They just want to add to it by giving up some members of the farm system. So, yeah, would you like a veteran player in return? Of course you would. But the deal with the Mets is they're trying to stack up on veteran players, mortgaging some of their farm system by giving up the third and fifth best prospect in their organization. That's how these deals work. Yeah, of course I would love to have an established major leaguer. One preferably with control. Now, the Brewers last year got Cortez in the Williams deal, and he was in the final year of his deal. And he came in, started, had that terrible outing at Yankee Stadium. They eventually traded him to the Padres, and it didn't work out too well for him in San Diego. But yeah, that's just how that works. You're getting minor leaguers. You're getting minor leaguers in return for the veteran you give up. All right. This guy wrote, "This is the worst trade in Brewers history. I would rather have Freddy for one more year. Who even are these people?" Talking about the guys the Brewers traded for. Oh my God, they traded Freddy for trash. Oh my God, they lost their mind. Do you see this, Chuck? It's the worst trade in Brewer history. This guy wrote me like minutes after the trade was done. I don't know if I ever want to be a fan this year. I do not think this year is going to go well. And I won't mention the name. Well, first of all, you're still going to be a fan. How many times have we been discussed it with the Milwaukee Brewers in our life? And then we're right back at the TV set. We're going to the game that Sunday and washing that previous day. I mean, there's been times, right? I mean, not so much in recent years because the Brewers have been pretty good winning division titles. But, I'm just so done with these guys. And then I'm back watching the game next night. Chano said, "I thought you were going to watch them tonight." Yeah, I know. This isn't the worst trade in Brewers history. It's not. And I feel like you too, and I'm not going to name the messenger's name because he messages me some good stuff. He's just frustrated here, and I get it. And I get all frustrations from Brewer fans. I totally get it. Hey, man, I've had a lifetime of frustration with the Milwaukee Brewers. One World Series visit since, and that was 1982 when I was a kid. So I totally get it. On Foul Territory, they mentioned the Brewers could be going through this again next offseason. I'll tell you what, they could be going through this during the regular season as well. If the Brewers don't get off to a good start, remember last year, all the national pundits wanted to trade Freddy. We were in wild card chasing. These national pundits wanted to trade Freddy. And it could happen again if the Brewers are a seller. I never thought they were a seller. But, we like to talk this trading deadline stuff. If the Brewers get off to a bad start, we need to sell this guy. And it's like May 3rd. So Contreras could be, if the Brewers underachieve, which I don't think they're going to do. All right. I feel like they're going to be in the mix. I feel they're going to be in a playoff hunt. But God forbid they're not. Certainly, Contreras' name, who's under 2 years more of control, this season and next season, his name's going to be brought up. Of course. And with a player with 2 years control, given that Contreras is healthy, right? He had the hand issue, but given that he's healthy and he hopefully had that hand fixed, he had that procedure done in the offseason, the Brewers could get something. Obviously, more prospects. Maybe this time a power hitter. I don't even want to think in terms of that. I still like to think that the Brewers are going to re-sign Contreras and bring him back for more years, in addition to the 2 years that he got left of his team control. Contreras has been unwilling to talk about his contract status. Obviously, he's going to hit the jackpot given that he keeps us, producing like he is. One of the best catchers in baseball, right? Good clubhouse guy. Checks all the boxes again in that area. Just like Peralta. And Contreras, I would like to think that he's still on the table because he's not a pitcher. A pitcher, I'd say, okay, we could be going through this next year or this offseason. But with a catcher, a position player, I'm thinking that unlike Peralta, who I knew the Brewers had no shot at keeping, I think we can keep Contreras. I'm holding out hope. Brewers don't give out many big contracts, as you know. Braun, Yelich. Yeah, if you want to include Lorenzo Cain, 5 years, $80 million a few years ago. Yeah, the price of that would Lorenzo Cain, 5 years, $80 million. Could you even get him for 5 years at $80 million? A player like that anymore? That was 2018. But Contreras, let's not trade him just yet. And I saw that and I'm thinking, hopefully the Brewers don't get in that situation because I don't want to be talking about Contreras trade talk. Because Contreras trade talk in May would mean that the Brewers off to a bad start. And I'm not going to anticipate that. Will the Brewers make any more deals, though? I think there's a possibility of them making one more. And I mentioned the guy's name a short time ago, and we'll get to that coming up next. Locked on Brewers, Chuck Freimund, your host. And by the way, podcast, you get it on Google, Spotify, Apple, on all the major downloads. Wherever you download your audio podcast, we're the #1 Brewers podcast. Google, Spotify, Apple, all those platforms. And of course, our growing YouTube page. We've just eclipsed 8,000 because you guys out there, 8,000 followers. Please subscribe. Hit the bell. That alerts you every time we drop an episode. And of course, when moves happen, just like the Peralta move, we're dropping some instant reaction. And of course, a 30-minute episode to follow. That's the way we do it here on Locked On Brewers, keeping you posted right up with all the news. Any more trades? Yes. I think McGill is another guy who is on the table for a trade. Like I mentioned earlier here in the podcast, I think the Brewers, I think there was some talk about maybe McGill being put in this trade and then Myers being the guy. Again, I'm just reading the leaves on this, but I think the Brewers will trade McGill. I think there's a possibility that this could happen. Again, they'll get a prospect in return. They're not going to get a 35 home run hitter. They'll get a prospect in return for McGill. Love to keep him. I've already told you, I think Uribe has a great shot at winning the closer's role going into spring training, I think that's going to be a battle right there. I don't think it's just because McGill was the closer and Uribe was the closer when McGill was on the shelf. I think Uribe's got a shot at winning that. But he would be the only one. And as far as back to Contreras, I thought maybe this offseason there's a slight possibility. Again, in the 2 years control, that would be a long shot, the Brewers trading Contreras before opening day. But McGill, certainly. I do feel like the Brewers are going to sign somewhere a backup catcher. I believe Caratini went to the Twins. Apparently he was in the mix. He played here a couple of years ago, was with the Astros, had 2 nice years with the Astros. But I believe he signed with the Twins. He's off the table. So I believe the Brewers, you know what? There's going to be some guy out there who's looking for a job. They'll bring him into camp coming up here in a couple of weeks, right? Because this guy's not been signed by anybody. There'll be some unknown guy who, oh, really? That guy's still playing baseball? What, he's 35 years old? Oh, let's bring him in. Non-roster invitee. Seems like the Brewers are good in that area. That's what they do. Bring in a couple of guys who used to be stars. So I think that's about it. They might bring in a couple of non-roster invitees. They could trade McGill. Otherwise, this might be your team, 2026 team. And as far as the 2 guys that the Brewers got in return, Williams and Sprout, according to Matt Arnold, he says, we don't know if this is true, but he says both players have a shot at making the opening day roster in 2026. Both Williams and Sprout. And he could be just throwing out there competition because you want competition in spring training. That's going to do it for the show. Again, the Everydayer Club, please become a member. We're going to get this Discord going. We have commercial free Locked On Brewers and all the audio podcasts, other amenities as well. Check it out below. See if it's for you. We're always going to be here free, Locked On Brewers. But check it out in the notes section, whether you're watching me on YouTube or listening to the audio version of Locked On Brewers. See